a little bit about
Actually, Russell, I need to make one point because I think it's very important. There's a very strange double standard that we all feel in this space, where we think it's somehow morally appropriate for someone to get spectacularly wealthy when they create the new iPhone or they create a new, blockbuster.
That was funded by the government. That was funded by taxpayers. Tech, I don't think that's right either. They're next on the list.
Most people,
Google,
okay,
all of them.
Okay, but unless you're going to stigmatize wealth itself or private property itself, unless you're a communist,
gargantuan
most
wealth.
people have this
not
double
communism.
standard.
No. This is wrong. I have to contest this, Sam. I would say Google was funded by public money. So was iPhone, and the public should own it if they pay for it.
Let me just lay out what I think most people feel this. Most capitalists feel this. That there's a difference between getting wealthy by if you're James Cameron and you create, the Terminator franchise, right? That's okay to get wealthy doing that. Because we all want to see, fun movies every summer, right? So what could be wrong with that? And yet the person who cures cancer shouldn't get wealthy, right? There's something corrupting about getting wealthy in the service of a true benefit to humanity, right? The person who's running a global relief organization that's responding to famines in Africa, that the CEO of that charity shouldn't be making $5 million a year, but the CEO of General Motors should be, because how else are you going to recruit them? And what we have with that double standard, we systematically recruit less talented people to solve our most pressing social and scientific problems, right? So we give every smart. Let me just land the plane here. We give every smart college student a forced choice between getting rich by working for Goldman Sachs or following what might in fact be their ethical vocation into philanthropy, but making an obvious economic sacrifice at the outset, no matter how high they get in the organization, running CARE or Doctors Without Borders. They know they're not going to get rich because there's a taboo around doing that. And again, this is an incentive problem. I think we probably want our smartest people working on our hardest problems, and it's not obvious how to incentivize them apart from requiring that they be saints. Well, and I think saints are in short supply.
Because we are not organizing society to generate them. Now, I would say that if we prioritize materialistic models, materialistic rewards, and incentivization models that are predicated on that modality, then we will be doubling down on this false progressivist myth that's driving us ever further towards the kind of apocalypse that both of us, I think, sense is coming in different ways. You for this set of reasons, me for that set of reasons. And I would say that, well, let's face it, the main reason that we're having this conversation, Sam, other than both guys that like having a chat, we love the jiu-jitsu and we can handle a gentle quarrel, is to talk about your Waking Up app. Now, what is the point of meditating if it is simply to make yourself a more efficient unit within a pre-established machine that's only going to evolve along predetermined lines? The reason I meditate is because I believe in change. I believe in the ability to change myself, to become a better man, to overcome my previous limitations, foibles and flaws. And I believe in radical change for society. When I say radical change, I don't mean disruptive change that's going to hurt people. I mean true progress, inclusive progress, where we're able to look at the big picture and say, whilst this aspect of the pandemic period was a reasonable error to have made, this one appears like the type of error that benefited certain institutions and interests. Whilst this part of the narrative is being excluded, perhaps in good faith, it seems to me that this is being de-amplified precisely because it does offer a challenge to globalist interests. What I want is a society where you are absolutely free to believe whatever you want. I'm free to believe whatever I want. And we only need to argue where our shared interests are being challenged on that. And I reckon we would find that that's not so many issues as we might assume. And one of the ways we might get there, and where surely we agree, is on the subject of meditation and by the method of meditation. I meditate in order to access dimensions, framings, phenomena, frequencies, even space that is inaccessible to me if I remain within the rational, logistical, materialistic part of my mind. Why do you meditate, Sam? And why should we meditate?
Well, the main reason to meditate, I mean, I think there are two doorways into meditation, and just finding it of interest and paying attention to it long enough to discover that there's a there there. The first door could just be intellectual curiosity, wanting to know what's real about the nature of the mind. I mean, it just makes sense. If you want to understand yourself better and the nature of your own experience better, it makes sense to pay attention to it. And meditation is really just the act of paying close attention to what it's like to be you moment to moment. So I think you can get there purely on the basis of intellectual interest, but the most common route, and I think the route that is certainly more persuasive to most of us, is the doorway of psychological suffering. I mean, becoming interested in the mechanics of your own suffering, which is how is it that thoughts about the past or the future can exert this overwhelmingly coercive influence on your mood in the present, right? You think about something you regret or that embarrasses you, or you think about something in the future that you're worried about, that produces anxiety. How is it that change in the character of your mind is accomplished, and is it necessary, right? Is there an alternative to that? Is there a way of relating to the flow of thought such that you don't get pushed around in the same way? And what is it that gets pushed around? You know, is there a self in the middle of this storm that is actually vulnerable to changes in experience, or is there just experience? And are you just identical to the totality of experience moment to moment? And so there's something to discover there about the mechanics of your own unhappiness. And it really is freeing. I mean, you really can be liberated from a certain kind of suffering that is truly unnecessary. I mean, you know, if you take it far enough, you discover that virtually all of your psychological suffering has been unnecessary. It's been a kind of dream, right? It's very much analogous to being asleep and dreaming and not knowing it, right? You're not in the situation you think you're in moment to moment, and that discovery is quite freeing.
It's beautiful and as profound as anything I can imagine discussing. If in this realm of consciousness you can discover that my entire identity and all our dilemmas, and indeed all culture, are a kind of construct relevant only within a particular framing or within a particular paradigm, what does that suggest about the nature of consciousness and awareness? And do you ever query the perhaps unique status of consciousness given the number of times it brings us to dead ends of inquiry, i.e. where does it come from? What is the significance of the presence of a conscious observer in sort of sub-particular experimentation, obviously, and most particularly in the instance of the double slit experiments and variations and progressions of that experiment, and the recent Nobel Prize in physics that discovered that there ultimately is no local reality, or at least posits that. It's a pretty difficult thing to prove. And I ask this, in particular in relation to what you just said, that you can experientially and subjectively free yourself. Like, you know, given the last half hour where you and I have gone, oh, I think this, I think that, oh, the war's this, the war's that, oh, the pandemic was this, pandemic's that. And both of us are saying, ultimately, it is all a construct. Surely this will participate in the provision of a solution for the previous bloody 40 minutes. Yes.
Well, I wish it were that easy. I mean, I think much of it is
extremely difficult.
No, but even in success, I mean, just to take the examples of success where, you know, I was lucky enough to study with some of the greatest meditation teachers of the late 20th century. I mean, I spent a lot of time in India and Nepal studying with people. I mean, I had teachers who spent 20 years in a cave, right? I mean, like these wonderful Tibetan lamas who, in the meditation space, are analogous to the, you know, Hiron and Henner we just spoke about in jiu-jitsu, right? You get on the mat with Hiron and Henner, and you know you're in the presence of knowledge that you don't have, and a kind of refinement of technique and expertise that certainly took 10,000 hours to accomplish, and it might also require a certain kind of natural talent, right? Maybe not everyone can be as good as the best people Certainly, if there's if it's like analogous to anything else in human life, there's a range for talent. But many of these people, I would say all of these people, if I think of the greatest meditation masters I ever studied with, at least one of them might have thought the world was flat, right? I mean, these are people who are not educated about with respect to 21st century science or politics or anything else we've been touching upon here. And there's nothing about getting really good at untying the knot of self that necessarily gives you specific knowledge about any domain of expertise that we need to explore in order to solve our specific problems, right? So to just take what does it take to identify a pathogen that's jumping from bats into humans and make that no longer be a problem? Or what is it going to take for us to solve the
have a little look around the Wuhan laboratory for infectious diseases and check out how it's funded and how it's regulated.
What I'm saying,
but Sam, more important than that, mate.
I'm saying these are domains of relative knowledge that have to be solved on their own terms.
But to use your own argument, if you can undo the knot of self, then surely you will acknowledge that all that takes place on the material plane in this shared cultural space, which is nothing more than an amalgam of our shared cultural and personal experiences, the